so you kind of get an idea of what I'm talking about. I got so interrupted by like 5 different phone calls that cut off the microphone on the phone. So let me continue where I left off, which is, so we're talking about Brinkley. So Brinkley sets up a separate financial institution. They then at that point give dealers, let's say, $500,000 of available floor plan, no principal payment. So basically, they can keep the inventory on the lot for as long as they want, as long as they make the interest payments. They don't have to pay down the inventory. And in exchange, you have to carry, let's say Brinkley went to a single axle 12995 trailer, like a Coleman. Then, sorry, you have to carry that if you have our floor plan, right? So on and so forth. So what that would do, now that would put the manufacturers in a bind, like Brinkley, like Genesis Supreme, like Alliance, like a lot of these independent manufacturers that are not part of a corporation. It would put them in a bind because now that interrupts cash flow. Now your cash flow is dependent upon principal payments every month and dependent on the dealer to turn the inventory quickly. So that would also piss off dealers, because what would happen at the end of the day is you'd have to get rid of minimum advertised pricing or MAP pricing, because at that point, cash flow is now interrupted. So now your gross profit margin at the dealership level is going to severely be impacted. You're going to have to do some kind of rebate program for the dealers. It's not easy. So if they actually create their own floor plan and create the infrastructure for their own inventory loans to put dealerships back on the map and be able to continue to build and incorporate and keep costs down on dealership cash flow, the gross profit margin is going to go to hell. Because now what's going to happen is, let's say you charge 8% on a $70,000 fifth wheel loan, and 8% is a lot of money, guys. So if you have, 8% on an RV loan over 20 years is different than an 8% inventory loan. It's very different how it's calculated. It's very different how the payment structure goes. Like, I'll give you an example. You could have 50 pieces on the lot, and your interest payment could be anywhere between $15,000 and $35,000, depending on how your structure is at the bank. So you have to realize that over the course of time, it's not a very big profit center for the manufacturer. It's basically to put inventory on the lot, on the ground, because you have, and I can't mention the banks because I've been kind of sworn to secrecy about it, but there are 4 banks that are going to pull out of the boat and RV industry when it comes to inventory loans. Not you going and buying an RV. They're not going to pull out of that. They're not going to pull out of you buying a car. They're going to pull out of you buying a boat. They're strictly going to pull out of giving dealerships a credit line to buy inventory. We are seeing this already started to occur in the car industry over the last 3 years. We already have seen it in the power sports industry over the last 2 years. Now it's finally affecting RVs and boats. And that's because, again, like I said in the previous live stream before the microphone cut off because I got a phone call, it's because the lending institutions that are giving out this money to put this inventory on dealership lots do not find it profitable and are claiming that they are losing a significant amount of money. Okay. I'm talking about the RV industry. So if you're interested in the RV world, whether you're a fifth wheel or travel trailer, toy hauler, motorhome, if you're anywhere interested in that world, that's my target audience. Okay. So the reality is even though you may think it only affects dealerships and retail stores, it actually affects everybody, because it'll affect the manufacturer and what they can build, and it'll affect the consumer's choices, because now you're going to have fewer options. So if you're a person you're a family member or you got a family, or you're retiring, or whatever the case may be, and you're planning on hitting the road in a brand new diesel pusher, you sold your house, everything else, your options and your availability is going to shrink significantly over the next 2 years if the manufacturers don't step in and create that infrastructure or relaunch that infrastructure, which again, it's very risky, very risky. It's always a good time to buy. Always a good time to buy. Never a bad time to buy. The worst time to buy an RV is when you're not ready. The best time to buy an RV is when you're ready. It is the worst financial decision you'll ever make in your life, but it's the best thing for your soul, your spirit, your mind, your mental health. It's a lifestyle. You're buying into a lifestyle. It is a horrible financial decision, but it's a great lifestyle decision. I personally live in a fifth wheel toy hauler, and it was the best thing I ever did. It's way better than being in an apartment or a condo or house, because I'm on my own. You know, I have the flexibility to go anywhere I need to go. And it's my own bed, my own fridge, my own toilet. I don't have to worry about staying at hotels. I love it. It's a great lifestyle. Love it. Love it to death. So that's really what I was getting to, and what I was getting to the point of was, and if you didn't see the last live stream a little bit ago before I got interrupted, a lot of the manufacturers have the infrastructure in place to basically to reinstitute a financial institution to give the dealerships inventory. That's fabulous. They have, a lot of them have it. It's just a matter of they got to pull the trigger on it. Okay. Either that, or we're going to go through the biggest contraction in the RV industry, and it will have nothing to do with the economy. And what will be worse is it will drive prices up. Okay, so one of the reasons why prices have gone down since 2023 and just started going back up here in 2025 is because there were multiple options. There was competition. Now imagine if Forest River, as an example, we'll pick on Forest River for a minute. Let's say Forest River, let's say Doug Getters, now the president of Forest River, let's say all of a sudden he contracts the entire thing down to 4 brands of travel trailers and 1 brand of motorhomes. You're going to drive the price up, because now there's no competition. There's no competition amongst factory management to try to beat each other in inventory and to beat each other in dollars. There's no, it basically would boil down to, let's say, Rockwood and you know, Forest River Wildwood or whatever, and then nobody else. And then your dealerships are going to contract. And then you'll see Camping World cut their stores in half. You'll see, you know, Blue Compass cut their stores in half. You'll see mom and pop stores vanish. So it's realistically, it's not a doom and gloom thing. It's let's get ahead of the game. That's why I'm talking about it now instead of in the middle of the crisis. Let's talk about it now. So if you're an RV dealership, you should be knocking on your manufacturer's doors. If you're a Brinkley dealer, you're a Grand Design dealer, you're a Keystone dealer, knock on Jeff Reynolds' door, knock on Nate Goltenberg's door, knock on Don Clark's door. Hey guys, we're kind of starting to hear from the Honey Badger that, Some of these floor plan banks are starting to want to contract and get out of the RV industry. What's your game plan? What's your game plan? Start knocking on these fuckers' doors. Because if you don't start now, I'm going to tell you, they're not thinking about that. I'm going to tell you right now, Doug Gettard, Bob Martin, Winnebago, Pablo, Nate Goldenberg, the Colby boys over at Alliance, they're not thinking about that. They're more worried about keeping their plants open and how are we going to get through the winter and how are we going to, what kind of orders. They're worried about warranty. They're worried about, things of that nature. They're not even looking at that right now. So if you don't put it in front of them, if you don't get in front of Jeff Reynolds at Keystone and start saying, hey, Jeff, this is what we're hearing from the Badger, they're not going to come and see what I'm saying. Okay? They have to get involved. The only way this gets done and gets out of the way where we don't get affected end of next year is if these manufacturers get involved today. Not tomorrow, not 7 months from now, not when the springtime's over. If they got to start having those meetings now, they got to start putting the infrastructure in place now. And when we only have Northwood Manufacturing / Outdoors RV, when they're the only ones that are preparing for this scenario, whoo, baby, that's not a good thing. Not a good thing. So they need to all prepare now. No, I would only do a fifth wheel. I'll never do a van, ever. I know people. So email, I'm going to tell you, email.ymill, I'll tell you what happens. A lot of these YouTubers are fake. A lot of these TikTokers and Instagrammers that say they live in a van, it's all bullshit. It's all fugazi. It's all fairy dust. It's all crap. They stay in Holiday Inns. They stay in Hampton Inns. They don't live in their van. The folks that actually live in their van give up after about 2 months because it's horrible to live in a van. Horrible. There's only 4 that I actually know personally that actually live in their van, film in their van, and actually sleep in their van, crap in their van, and shower in their van. The rest of the time, they're in big-ass hotel rooms with full bathrooms and water pressure. Yes, you need more space. The van sprinter thing is a niche thing, and it makes these people so much stupid money. But if you go pay attention to the editing, these folks, like I know one personally that called me and asked me how they can get out of their DIY van because they're sick of it. They were in there they've been off and on in there for a year. They stayed in it for 1 full month. And then all of a sudden they're like, hell no. But they love the money because they were making $25,000, $28,000, $29,000, $30,000 a month on YouTube. So how do we sneak around that? Well, they learned how to video edit it. They hired a video editor. They hired this person. They hired that person. And they show that it's all special effects and bullshit. So don't believe anything on the internet about living in a van. It's all horse manure. It's all smoke and mirrors. A fifth wheel, believe those people. A travel trailer, it's let's say 28, 29, 30 foot, believe those people. People that live in a nice diesel pusher, let's say a 34 to 38 foot diesel pusher, believe them. They're all living in it. A van? Heck no. A school bus? Yes. Those DIY school bus people are awesome. Okay? But yeah, you need space. Believe me. And you need storage. You can't live in a van. The people that do, God bless them. There's 4 people I know that do, and they're single. They don't have a spouse. They don't have any kids. Yeah. And even they stay in hotels every once in a while, especially for the water pressure. So anyway, that's kind of what I came on here to say and talk about, was about floor plan and inventory. I think we all just need to get ahead of the game as far as the industry. And I think the best way to get ahead of the game is to understand that these lending institutions control our industry. And unfortunately, you know, it's like everybody says, well, just pay cash for an RV. If you can't afford to pay it in cash, then you shouldn't buy it. Okay, so only the super rich are allowed to enjoy the RV lifestyle? So only people who can afford to pay cash for the inventory should stay in business? Just saying. Well, the biggest reason why is people that do the van thing, they really are, it's, I can't answer that question. No idea. Right, B, we're not talking about retail. We're not talking about retail. Retail is different. Nobody's pulling out of the retail side. They're pulling out on the wholesale side. Or there are talks about pulling out on the wholesale side. This is not something that is going to affect people from going to the dealership or going to the credit union and getting a loan. Not going to affect that. This affects dealers buying inventory from manufacturers. So, if you're a manufacturer, Mr. Goldenberg, I know you are paying attention because you watch me because you call me the blowhard. Pay attention, Nate. This is important. If you want to be the first to something besides a leaky seal that's hand applied from the automotive industry, be the first, well, actually now be the second, to get your own lending institution set up for inventory for your dealers. Because I'm telling you, that's coming down the pipeline. And you'll be ahead of the game of everybody else if you start that process now. Oh, no problem. I do a lot of informative stuff. Thank you. All right, guys, I got to go empty my laundry. I think it's done.